Hey guys, today we're taking a look at Duelist Alliance, the new pack that's going to be coming out in 2 days for the States and probably some other places. It might be coming out tomorrow, maybe in Europe and some other areas. But either way, it's updated on Dueling Network. It'll probably be labeled as TCG in 2 days. And I'm really excited for this pack. A lot of really crazy stuff is happening, a lot of new archetypes, a lot of things I want to get to. We're going to preview the cards, I'm going to talk about them, give my initial impressions, maybe talk about what we can do with these cards down the line. But I'm very excited for this pack because of the many new archetypes and the random support that a few archetypes are getting. It's going to be really fun to take a look at this. Obviously, pendulums are kind of getting released in this. A few pendulums already came out, but this is more of like the really initial release for pendulums. So we're going to start to see a lot more pendulum decks and things that we can do with that. So getting right into the cards, I'm just going to go through them one by one. So Dragonhorn Hunter, this is a pendulum that's kind of a normal monster support. Really cool to see more normal monster support in the game. We might be able to see some more normal monster decks. We can make some more pendulum variants. Along with that, we also have Flash Knight, which is more just a good pendulum monster in general, but I'd say it might be run more in just normal monster decks. Cool to see a pendulum scale at 7, which also has a decent beater stat, so pretty nice. Foucault's Cannon, I'm not as big of a fan of it, but it's kind of nice that you can do a 1-for-1 to destroy cards. And interesting at 2, depending on your deck type. Those pendulum scale numbers you really want to keep in mind depending on your deck type. Also, another normal monster that's getting added, Metaphys Arm Dragon. So this one, it's a worm type, which is the new type that's coming out. There might be additional plays depending on the spell and traps that get added for dragons and worms, depending on what we're doing. So we can see, a card like this might be useful when that support comes out. And then there's Odd Eyes Pendulum Dragon, obviously one that, most people already know about. So this card is going to be pretty commonly run, I think, because it's such a really good searcher for pendulums. We'll be able to also support our pendulums kind of like Dragonhorn Hunter over there that we can keep our damage from being done. So pretty nice, and just nice in general to search out pendulums. And then we're going to get into the Performapals. So Whip Snake I really like. A beater that can switch attack and defense, which is really powerful. You can make a lot of really crazy plays with that. Skeeter is another interesting one. You can negate attacks and switch it to defense. And we can do some interesting plays with that. Nice that these are both level 4, something to keep in mind. And then we have Performapal Swordfish. So this one allows you to weaken your opponent's monsters. If you're doing additional swarming, you can really blow up your opponent. What's really cool about this is that it does attack and defense, so you can start to think of the strategies with Performapals and the kind of variants you could do with the switching and the lowering of stats. Really nice. And then Hip Hippo, kind of more sort of a different variant on what the deck's trying to do, has more level 7 variants, but because Performapals are going to be doing some pendulum stuff, it seems like it's more of a pendulum based archetype. There's going to be a lot of additional stuff we're going to be able to do later on, so I'd like to see how that's going to play out down the line. And then a couple of the Performapal pendulums. So this one's a support for light, which is interesting because not all the performers are like light, so that's kind of an interesting thing that they're doing. It can be support for different stuff. Kind of a weird effect also that you can have a monster attack all the special summon monsters, but I think with some of the other Performapal stuff you can do, that can be really interesting. Performapal Turn Toad seems a lot more interesting, kind of like over here we got Whip Snake, kind of doing the same thing that we can switch attack and defense, which is really nice. And then we're going to get into the Superheavy Samurais. A lot of people are excited about these cards. Not a lot coming, but there will be a lot more coming in the next pack. We do have Blue Brawler, just meant to switch to defense, can't be destroyed by battle, which is very nice. And then Superheavy Swordsman, just a card that switches itself into defense or attack depending on what you're trying to do. And also very nice that you can lower your opponent's attack and defense to 0. The big deal behind Superheavy Samurai seems to be to have them to support themselves. Their big important card is Big Benkei, which allows them to attack from defense mode, which will be the big kind of point of the deck. And once all the cards are kind of set up on the field, it's going to be very tough to deal with them. And then the Melodious archetype is also getting added in this deck. Aria, the Melodious Diva, just a protection card. Well, the more important card seems to be Mozarta. That just kind of allows you to keep special summoning Life Fairies, which I can see big plays with this in other decks outside of the Melodious, but obviously in that deck it will be more interesting. And then Sonata, just allowing it to gain your fairy monsters to gain a lot of attack, which is kind of the point of Melodious. Is seems to be a lot of special summoning and advantage from that. So Battleguards are also getting a new card, which is pretty surprising. Seems more like an OTK card because you can tribute monsters to have it gain additional attacks. So I could see that being very powerful with the right OTK setup. Another archetype that's being added in this pack is Satellarknights. Very similar to Constellars. But a big thing about them is they gain a lot of effects just on being summoned as opposed to just their swarming. So the big thing is that Vega can special summon more, Altair, which allows you to special summon from the graveyard, which is very powerful, Deneb allowing you to search, Alsahm allowing you to do damage, and Unukalhai can send things to the graveyard, which is important, obviously, for Altair. So they all kind of work with themselves. I'm kind of worried whether they can really swarm as much as they need to, but they do have a lot of really cool effects. And the cool part about them is that most of their effects activate on just any kind of summon. So there's a lot of different plays that you'll be able to do with them. And of course, another dreaded archetype coming in this pack is Shaddolls, which everyone definitely worried about. Most of their effects are pretty similar. They just flip themselves to activate effects to destroy things or search out, or when they get sent to the graveyard, they can usually do more additional plays with sending or searching. A lot of them can destroy stuff. Falco is a tuner that can special summon himself, so there's a lot of different things. Not really much of a point to go into all of them, but that's their main effects, and it will just allow them to continuously set up the graveyard for what they need to do and set up their special summons and fusions really quickly. So another archetype that's being added in this pack is the Yang Zing archetype. So this archetype is just focused on keeping special summoning over and over again when they get destroyed. They do big advantage, and the real point of them is to synchro summon, and most of their effects just allow them to do additional stuff with synchro summons. Not really worth getting into all the cards, but all their effects are very, very similar. The idea is just to keep bringing out those synchros, which we'll talk about, eventually. There's also two artifacts that are being added in this pack, Chakram and Lancia. I'm not sure how good these will be. I'm more interested in Lancia because he has a really interesting effect that you can activate from the hand, which is pretty cool, that you can keep things from being banished. So it's a counter card to a lot of annoying cards like Dark Arm Dragon or something like that. So it could be a really, really nice card to maybe tech in against certain things. Chakram, I'm still kind of debating. It has kind of a recycle thing where you can kind of set up what you need with your cards, which is kind of interesting depending on what you want to set and bring back with the artifacts. And now we're getting into the kind of like random tech that's being added. Nefarious Archfiend, I'm not really sure the big point of this. This can just allow you to swarm with spellcasters, which is kind of interesting, and you can destroy things to bring it back. So if you really want to have this card up, or you want to make XYZ plays or special summon plays with spellcasters, it could be interesting. You could bring out Summoner Monk and special summon it and do a triple XYZ or something crazy like that. So there's a lot of interesting stuff that's could be out there for that card. And then the agents are getting a new card. The thing about this one is that it seems really powerful when you have Sanctuary in the Sky, which a lot of agents aren't running. So maybe agents will start running this so they can summon it, but it still has a decent effect. Very interesting that it's a level 5 tuner, so that will give agents access to a lot of different synchro plays. They also have the ability to send things to the graveyard and change the Sky's level, so they can really have a variety of synchros in their extra deck and summon them pretty easily with this card. And Djinns are also getting a new card, which is nice. They can keep their rituals from being targeted. Really love seeing more ritual support since it doesn't get run as much these days. Batterymen are also getting another card, which is really, really cool. They're getting a searcher that can also become a beater at the cost of destroying itself and searching at the same time. So really nice, because that's some of the things that can worry you with Batteryman, is getting the cards you really need right away. So I think this card will be pretty important to the Batteryman archetype. And then Resonance Insect is being added, so a really nice card to be able to search out higher level insects, which is some of the big plays that insect cards want to do. Also nice that you can continually send insects to the graveyard, because insects do a lot of special summoning based on what's in the graveyard, so that can be a really nice card to put in a few decks. I've definitely seen some people run it before. And then Breaker, the Dark Magical Warrior. So just a tribute version of Breaker that has more spell counters, so you can just destroy more things. It seems to be the big deal is to special summon it through Pendulum summoning and then gain 3 spell counters. So it'll become, 2800 attack with 3 destruction. So if it gets Pendulum summoned, this card could be very powerful for dealing with back row. Monarchs are also getting another Mega Monarch, which is really cool to see more of those being added. I hope all of them are added eventually. Just allowing you to bounce things, because that's Reza's main and goal. So just an obvious way to just bounce a lot of things, which is very powerful nowadays. And then Dogu, an interesting one. It's a beater that just can allow itself to search out when a card effect destroys it. So kind of interesting, because you can search out a card with a different level than what you control, but based on what you control, obviously there's a lot of different variations you can do. I'm not completely sure what deck this will be running. Maybe a deck with a variety of levels, or just kind of a searcher for anything. Maybe a deck that doesn't have searchers. But it's kind of debated whether people will use card effects on it, because they know obviously that that it has that effect. So kind of annoying in that way. And then another card that's being added to Hypnosister. So this is kind of an anti-pendulum card, which is really cool that they're adding pendulums and also an anti-pendulum card on top of it. So if you really think your opponent's going to be focused on pendulums, you can use this card to really blow them up. It's kind of a Catastore for pendulums. It becomes a beater. A lot of really cool things it has based on pendulums on the field. Recover, I'm really not a big fan of this card. It requires you to have like very specific extra deck setup. You have to have like 10 cards in your extra deck or really set up the extra deck well in order to make its effect work. So I'm not a big fan of it, but maybe you guys will find some plays for it. And then Despot, another interesting one, a level 1 tuner. It just can allow you to bring itself back when machines are special summoned. Kind of an interesting one if machines want to make more plays with synchros. Obviously that can be an interesting one. I don't think its gaining attack and defense is going to be very good at all. And then Spicy Spy, just a really weird card that you just allow yourself to either gain life points or gain attack depending on what's in your opponent's extra deck. Just choosing a random card. Not really sure what the point of this card is. It's just kind of penalizing extra decks, but not in a big way, so I'm not sure if it'll be a big card to run. And then White Prince. This card is really big for whites if you like that deck type. This card will be very powerful. It has 2 effects that are extremely strong for that archetype that you can bring King of the Skull Servants out, or you can just set up the graveyard perfectly. So I really like this card, and I really want to go back to my whites deck in order to run this. So then a few of the extra deck cards. Saphira is just a new ritual card that's being added. An interesting card that gains a lot of additional effects that you can choose between. You can see them here depending on what's happening when it's ritual summoned or when things get sent to the graveyard. So maybe with Light Sworns or some additional stuff. Could be really nice because we can search out light monsters too. So I can see this working in a few different decks. Nice to see more rituals coming, as I said. And then 2 of the Shaddoll fusions that are coming out. Most people know about these, but I'll go over them in just a little bit. They're cards that penalize special summoning. So Winda can keep special summoning from happening more than once, and Construct just destroys special summons, kind of like Catastore. So these cards are just anti-special summon. Very annoying once they get on the field. And even if you do get them out of the field, you can just search out the fusion cards that you already used for them that are in the graveyard. So very annoying to deal with, and are the big point of Shaddolls, and you'll be starting to see these cards come up a lot once you start playing with this new pack. So those are just half the cards. I just wanted to put half in one video, half in another. So tomorrow I'll be going over the rest of the cards that are going to be coming in this pack. But so far I'm really excited with all the new archetypes and all the new support that's coming. But if you guys are excited about any of these cards that I've mentioned here, please let me know in the comments. I'm excited about most of them. I really want to try a lot of the different deck types that are being added. But let me know. But as always, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you later.